What's up, everybody? Nate here. And right now in the United States, there are a handful of colleges that are completely closing down for good. In fact, since 2016, roughly 91 colleges throughout the United States have completely closed. And to be completely fair here, some of those 91 colleges that have closed down in the United States, well, some of them have actually merged into bigger and better universities, but around 50% of them since 2020 have completely shut down altogether. Now, many experts have actually been blaming the pandemic virus for all of these colleges closing down, saying that the reason they're closing down is that people were pushing away from being in large groups, and that includes college campuses. But this isn't just a pandemic problem. The pandemic simply just accelerated an issue that has been growing for a long time now, and that is colleges are disappearing altogether. Well, so what exactly is going on here? Well, there are three major things that are sort of destroying colleges in the United States right now. The first has to do with admissions and enrollment. According to the editor-in-chief of the Princeton Review, since about 2010 in the US, there has been an uptick in the amount of admission drop-offs for colleges all throughout the United States, which means colleges are also starting to suffer. And even before 2010, we have been seeing college admission rates drop in the United States. Pretty much since 2000, we have been seeing fewer high school graduates go into colleges and universities. And many estimates show by 2025, we are going to have the lowest college admission rate that we have seen in the United States in a very, very long time, and it's going to turn negative from there. Now, it's pretty easy to see based on that information why colleges are starting to disappear. If colleges don't have enough students attending them, then they're not going to have any tuition. And if they don't have tuition, then they're not able to pay their teachers and they're not able to pay for their grounds. So that means they're going to have to close up shop because they don't have enough money coming in to support their costs. Around 95% of colleges in the United States rely on that tuition. So if they don't have students attending their schools, they're going to close down. Now, of course, there are some colleges that are private and some public universities that rely on tax dollars and individual donors to continue to run. But most colleges in the United States, well, they are shutting down because they don't have enough money to continue. So that is exactly what is going on right now. But I said before that a lot of experts are actually blaming the pandemic for kind of causing admission rates to go down. And like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, that's because we had the virus and many people were trying to stay indoors and away from large groups. There were millions of students throughout the United States who actually took a year or two off from going to college because they didn't want to get sick or put their friends and family at risk. So they actually stayed away from colleges, or they took a separate route that was going to require online classes. So they weren't actually going to colleges and universities at that point. And I definitely agree with a lot of experts here that say the pandemic caused a lot of admission rates to drop, but I believe that it really just accelerated admission rates dropping in the United States because they were already dropping. And that's because Americans and high school graduates don't really want to go to college like they used to. If you are a part of the millennial generation, then you are no stranger to the pressure of going to school. I remember growing up, a lot of my friends and family had the expectation that they needed to go to college or a university and get that college degree in order to be successful. Well, a lot of older millennials, especially millennials that graduated between around 2005 and 2010, realized that even though they were going to school, even though they lived their whole life with the expectation of going to college and then getting a really good job after college, they graduated finding out that that is definitely not the case. Even a lot of the students that ended up graduating and getting a really good job are now finding out that going to school and getting that college degree wasn't the key to success like they thought it was going to be. And I think a lot of it has to do with how we sort of define success, and a lot of it has to do with what people are expecting when they get a college degree. I want to talk about success here for a second because success is something that can be defined in a lot of different ways. Some people have financial success, some people have health success, some people have educational success, but I think to have a full rounded life, you have to have success in all of those different areas. Fact of the matter is, to have financial success, that doesn't necessarily mean you need to work a 9-to-5 job. To have financial success, that doesn't mean you need to have a college degree. I think a lot of kids over the last 10 or 15 years seniors are now starting to realize that. They're realizing that they don't have to go to school in order to get that financial success. The pandemic not only caused a lot of students to kind of consider the health ramifications of going to school during this time, but to sort of consider the idea of school in general. A lot of high schoolers that are sort of now part of that pandemic generation, well, they saw their parents and their grandparents working during the pandemic, or they saw a lot of their parents actually lose their jobs during this time as well. And I think what that showed them is that even though you go to college and even though you follow that traditional path that you've been told works really well in the United States, well, it might not end up working out for you. So a lot of high schoolers have been rethinking what they want to do with their life because of the pandemic. This really gave them the time to kind of reconsider everything. Do they want to go to college? Is college even necessary in today's economy? A lot of these questions have been coming up for a lot of high schoolers, and many of them are finding out that they simply don't need to go to college and get a college degree in order to have a successful and fulfilled life. Now, obviously, college is important for a lot of different reasons. I went to college, I got the 4-year bachelor's degree, and I'm glad I did. But that's not to say that every single person and every single high schooler has to have college and that it's a prerequisite for a successful life. The original purpose of college is to sort of give you some extra skills and more specialized skills, that way you can have an impact on your particular career field. So high school is all about general education. They're going to teach you things and they're going to teach you skills that make you a functioning member of society. They're going to give you the bare bones on history, on science, on math. Now, when you go to college, you're actually learning more in a specialized field, so that way you can have a bigger impact. In the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, well, our economy was advancing. Technology was advancing. We had the dot-com bubble. We had all of these different companies who were starting to innovate in a really, really crazy way. So that meant that we needed people with bigger and better skills to sort of fill in the careers of the future. That's why generations continued to go to school, because it really made sense. There was an ROI there, a return on investment. You could go to school and get a really high-paying job that was going to fulfill you financially and something that fulfilled your life's passions as well, because there was all these brand new careers sort of coming out. And like I said, we absolutely needed that in our economy, but things are a little different in 2023. For one, our jobs market is completely oversaturated right now. If you look at the numbers, we have pretty much the lowest unemployment rate that we've had in the United States in a very, very long time. That means just about everybody in the country is working. Unemployment is only around 3% right now. It's safe to say that the majority of Americans are working right now, which means pretty much every career has been spoken for. We can't continue to have tens of thousands of new college graduates going off into the workforce, because the reality is there just isn't that many new job postings and that many new career postings right now. Hundreds of thousands of new jobs are created every single month, but there's also hundreds of thousands of people who are laid off or unemployed, and that means all of your new college graduates are going up against people who might have a degree of their own, but also have a ton of experience. So there just isn't a huge place for it. So now you have college graduates who are either going back to school and getting a bigger and better degree to try to be even more competitive in the jobs market, or they're taking an internship, which sometimes doesn't even pay you. So now people with college degrees are taking internships and they simply just can't survive off of that, especially in big cities like LA, Chicago, and New York. And then the other thing that we need to consider here is during the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, we didn't have the internet, we didn't have YouTube like it is today. So college was basically a necessity. If you wanted to learn a higher skill, you had to go to a place where that skill was being showcased. Colleges and universities and trade schools were pretty much the only place to do that. But nowadays, we have things like the internet, we have YouTube, and a lot of high schoolers are opting to enroll in YouTube University rather than a traditional one, meaning they are learning all of this knowledge and skills on YouTube and other platforms instead of paying thousands upon thousands of dollars to go to a college. And that's the last thing you need to consider here, is the cost. Now, our economy of today is very different even compared to just 4 years ago. We have really high inflation. The last CPI numbers, or the Consumer Price Index numbers that go over the inflation rate in the United States, came in at around 4%. Just last summer, inflation was over 9%. And even though 4% is much lower than 9%, it is still heavily elevated, meaning it is much too high. So that means tuition prices are higher. That means staying and living on a college campus is a lot more expensive. Food costs are going up, book costs are going up, and a lot of American high schoolers are trying to figure out if the cost of going to school is actually justified for them right now. Does it make sense to go into debt or to try to pay tens of thousands of dollars to go to school, or can you go another route and be just as financially successful and fulfilled in your own life? I personally believe that college admissions are going to continue to go down in the United States, and what I think we have to consider here is what the future jobs market is going to look like because of that. We are at the cusp again with AI sort of exploding all throughout the country and all throughout the world, where we need a more highly educated workforce and a more talented workforce to sort of take on the jobs of tomorrow, because AI is most likely going to wipe out millions of jobs. But AI could also create millions of jobs as well, and we need people to fill those roles too. Is college going to be the place for that? Well, I'm not sure at this point. There may be other places for people to learn a lot of the skills that they need in order to master AI or to kind of create the systems for tomorrow. What I don't think is going to happen is we're going to have a less educated workforce because we don't have people going to school. I think that because of technology and because of AI, our generations of people are only getting smarter, and I think college is simply going to be reserved for the people who need to have practical skills. That means skills that need to be highly scrutinized and tested constantly. For instance, if you were going to be a doctor or a surgeon, you can't just learn that through an online class. You actually have to physically go somewhere and prove that you have mastered those skills. So I'm talking about doctors, I'm talking about engineers, lawyers, people who actually have to physically go out and do something. Well, those jobs may still require you to go to school. But a lot of other career paths in marketing, career paths in English, AI, and a lot of these other technologically advanced paths, well, you might not need to even go to school in order to do them. You can learn a lot of those skills online. And the last thing that I want to leave you with here is this. At the end of the day, college is about learning. I think a lot of people want to see the ROI out of it because you're paying for something and then you want something out of it. So a lot of people look at college and they say, well, if I'm going to be spending X amount of money, then I better be making Y amount of money when I actually graduate. To me, college was never about that. College was about opening my mind and sharpening my critical thinking skills. And I think that education in general is supposed to do sharpen your critical thinking skills so that way you can apply a general amount of knowledge to pretty much anything throughout your entire life. So go to college if it makes sense for you and if that fulfills you in your life with having that education. But just know you don't have to get a college degree in order to be financially successful or to be fulfilled. What I love about Gen Z and younger millennials is that they have the power at their fingertips with their cell phone and the internet to become investors really, really early on in their life and learn a lot of the things that millennials my age didn't learn when they were growing up. I was never taught about investing. I was never really taught what the stock market was. My only exposure to the stock market was through movies and video games. That has led a lot of Gen Z and younger millennials to take a completely different path in their life. Sure, they might not be making hundreds of thousands of dollars every single year, but they're making enough to survive and they have a good enough work-life balance that they're happy in their life, and then they become investors, which is the true way to create financial success. It's not through your job, it's through investing. Gen Z understands that, which means our economy is completely changing, which means what we're going to need in the future is also starting to change. Now, I personally think that is for the better, but let me know what you think on this entire situation in the comments below. Do you think that colleges are going to grow in the future, or do you think that this trend is going to continue and colleges are eventually going to disappear? Be sure to like the video and subscribe before you go, and if you're ready for more content from me, I've got another video ready for you right there, so be sure to check that out before you go. That is it for me, everybody. Be kind out there, and I'll see you all in the next one.